Hello, everybody. This is Dan Vaccaro, your instructor for the Math 0920. I made a short little slide presentation of where we're going next week, October 26th, I think is Monday, or I'm sorry, it's the 28th, Halloween weekend week. So I want to talk about what we're going to talk about on Monday and part of Wednesday. We're talking about chapter 4, which is on fractions. So a couple of key points to remember from chapter 2 and 3 before we get into chapter 4. And that is, chapter 2, we have to remember the definition of integers, something that we talked about with negative numbers and how to approach negative numbers. Adding, subtracting those numbers, for example, absolute value. We talked about absolute value, about distance from zero. Exponential notation. We talked about some of the things to expect when we have negative numbers with brackets or with parentheses and not radicals. Talked about those cube roots and fourth roots, order of operations, PEMDAS, and using this idea of PEMDAS from left to right, reading it from left to right. Some of the things in decimals that we should remember is adding, subtracting, how to read them, basic operations, multiplication, division, using the calculator for decimals, how to round, converting into percent, converting a decimal to percent, and dealing with the order of operations and decimals. Chapter 4. What we're going to get to in chapter 4 is some vocabulary first, of course. Fractions are parts of whole numbers. Numerator, denominator. So the numerator is the top number, denominator is the bottom number. Something called mixed fractions. There are 3 types of fractions. We've got a proper, improper, and mixed. Proper is a top number is smaller, like 3/4. And improper, the bottom number. The top number is actually larger, like 5/2. And the mixed fractions, we have a partial whole, and so these are whole numbers with a part of a fraction like 1 1/2 or 2 1/2. These are examples of mixed fractions. I also want to talk about, we're going to talk about how some of the skills we need to know. For example, skills to learn are changing from proper to improper, finding equivalent fractions. So if we want to change from improper or proper to improper, like 5/3 to 1 2/3, or finding equivalent fractions, like 1/2 is the same as 2/4, 3/6 is the same as 4/8, and then reducing to lowest terms, 3/6 can be reduced to 1/2. 10/12 can be reduced to 5/6. We're going to talk about divisibility tests. I've already talked about some of them already, like 2. We're going to talk about 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, and 10. For example, 2, we already know that all even numbers are divisible by 2, always. And I talked about the divisibility of 3. If you sum those digits up, and that digit is divisible by 3, so is the entire number. So we're going to get into 3, 4, 5, 9, and 10. There's some tricks there to learn. Prime factorization. We're going to talk about any non-prime number can be broken into a product of prime numbers. For example, 15 can be broken down to 5 and 3. 39 can be broken down to 3 times 13. We're going to talk about the GCF, greatest common factor, fundamental theorem of arithmetic. These are some of the things we're going to talk about in chapter 4. To get back to changing improper to proper, these are some of the things that I'm going to probably skim over or assume you looked at before we start talking in class. But I may go over a few. Here's a couple that I could. Change the improper fraction into a proper fraction, like 3 4/5. If I want to take 3 4/5 and change it to an improper, this is a mixed form right now, so we want to change this mixed form into an improper fraction. We multiply the 3 times 5, So 3 4/5 can be said to be 3 times 5 plus 4. So 3 times 5 is 15, plus 4 is 19, and we use the same denominator, 5. So 19/5 is our improper fraction of our mixed number. Changing proper into improper. So here we have the improper, and we're going to put in mixed form. So really this is really changing from the improper to mixed. So if I take 27 halves, for example, 27 halves is the same as dividing these two, and 2 doesn't go into it evenly because it's not even numbers, but it can go into it 13 times, which is 26. So 26 minus 27 would be 1. 1 left over, so we can write this as 13 1/2. Again, the denominator we use is 2, and so 2 goes in this at least 13 times, so that's 26. And then we have 1 left over. We use the 1 for our leftover for the part of the fraction. Here's a couple more for practice. Change the improper into a mixed fraction. So if I take the 7/3, what kind of mixed number would it look like? Well, 3 goes into 7 twice. So 2 would be the first part, with 1 left over, because 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 from 7 is 1. So we use that as our part of our fraction. So we write the 2 as our whole number. We write the 1 as our part of our fraction and use the same denominator of 3. So it should be 2 1/3. Changing a mixed into improper, so 2 1/3 is like 2 times 3 plus 1, which is 6, plus 1, which becomes 7. So our new improper fraction is going to look like 7/3. Here's some other ones here. Did I do these? I think I did this one. 5 1/2 is like 5 times 2 plus 1, which becomes 11/2. Finding equivalents is another little skill we need to learn. This is a little bit more complicated in the sense that we have to, every fraction has an equal fraction to itself. For example, 1/4. If we take, if we want to find the equivalent fraction 1/4, we just multiply the top and bottom by 2. So if I multiply the top, 2 times 1 is 2. Then the bottom, 2 times 4 is 8. I can rewrite the equivalent fraction as 2/8. Okay, I got 3/5 there and 11/25 as, let's look at, so 3/5 can be changed into 6/10 by multiplying top and bottom by 2. And 11/25 multiply top and bottom by 2, I get 22 times 50, or 22 divided by 50. Let's look at that other column there. Another way to do these problems is if you have something like this, 4/3 is equal to something over 30. Here we're looking for a very specific equivalent fraction. Here we're restricted to one certain kind of equivalent fraction. To find the new numerator, we must see what the denominator times, what the number times 3 gives us 30, which is 10. In other words, we look at these two numbers here and see what times 3 gives me 30. I found that was 10. Then we use that 10 to multiply the numerator, and 4 times 10 is 40. So our new fraction is 40/3. Let's try some on page 95. This is going to be some practice here you can do. I'm going to probably assign this for homework if you get to this tonight, here's Sunday night before Monday. So if you don't get a chance to do it tonight, on page 95, 1 and 2 and 3, you'll have those for homework the following night. So 4/5 equals something over 40. That's a something, really, it's a question mark. So 5 times some number gives me 40. So I'm going to look at the denominators, 5 and 40. That would give us 5 times 8 gives me 40, right? I hope so. And so now I use that 8 to multiply the numerator. 4 times 8 is 32. So my new equivalent fraction is now 32 over 40. 32/40. So that's my equivalent fraction for 4/5. 27 or 3/7 is something over 63. So that means 7 times something gives me 63. Hopefully it gives us a 9. So the missing number is 9. So we take that 9 and multiply it by the numerator and get 27. So now my new fraction, equivalent fraction, looks like 27/63. We could do the same thing to this one. This is number 3 on that page. 2/5 is equal to 18 over something. So we figure out what the 2 and 18, 2 times something gives me 18. Obviously it's 9. We use that 9 to multiply by a numerator, or 2 times 9 is 18, so I notice that 9 is missing. So I use that 9 for the denominator, so 5 times 9 is 45. And so we now have 18/45. So that concludes my little presentation. Hopefully you find it helpful. Thank you. And I'll see you on Monday. Goodbye.